Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming along to our webinar. We're going to be talking today about the title of the webinar is Social Media versus Your Website. Where should you be investing in 2023? So we're hoping to get to about 45 minutes of talking through all the subject matter, and then we'll have a bit of time for questions at the end if everything runs on time. So I'll get straight into it, folks. Can you all hear me? Can I get a just a response, like a yes in the chat?
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah! Is that a yes? I'm not hearing anything from anyone. Ah yes, I was looking in the wrong place. Hell yeah! Oh yeah, Sean. Hell yeah, you can hear us. Right, brilliant. Okay, let's get rolling, guys. So, social media versus your website. Where should you be investing in 2023? Before we go any further, I'll give you a bit of information on us. So I'm Jag Panisar, I'm the director of Xpand. We're a full service digital marketing agency. We've been going for 15 years. I have about 18 years in marketing and business management experience. I've delivered projects for brands such as Lindt Chocolate and Tetley Brewery, and my favorite marketing platform are websites. Yeah, Danny.
Hi guys, I'm Danny. I've been with Xpand now for three years, I think. I'm the digital marketing manager here. Prior to Xpand, my background was in sales and marketing and recruitment. So 19 years spanning in total across those, which probably for my sins, but I won't admit that. I've been previously trained by LinkedIn and directly through their through themselves. We've been based in Ireland, and I am certified in my CIM in marketing. My favourite marketing platform has to be social media. Of course it does.
It absolutely does. You sound 19 years in sales. It makes you sound older than me.
It does, actually. I was thinking that. I was like, how have I got more experience than you?
Yeah.
I am younger.
Anyway, moving on.
Just putting that there.
Of course you are. You definitely look younger.
But
okay. Moving on. Okay, so today, guys, what are we going to cover? We're going to talk about how your audience are using social media and Google to find your business, future predictions for social media in the business-to-business arena, future predictions for websites and SEO in the B2B arena, how to decide where to invest your budgets, and then a few useful tools. So let's get started. Have you ever wondered how your audience is using social media and Google to find your business? If you saw the news, you might have panicked a little bit. So this was about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. The senior vice president of Google was quoted to have said, in our studies, something like almost 40% of young people, when they're looking for a place for lunch, they don't go to Google Maps or search, they go to TikTok or Instagram. So within our industry, it created a bit of a kerfuffle, saying, oh, wow, okay, right. So is all of us in social media so much bigger than Google? What do we need to be doing? Where should we be investing our budgets? But what I'd say is you don't need to panic. Firstly, it's probably a publicity stunt on Google's behalf. You know, obviously that quote is kind of possibly taken out of context with the wider picture. When you actually read everything that the senior vice president said, it isn't quite as heavily based on that, but that was what the media picked up on. Secondly, it's referring to B2C users. Today, we're going to be talking primarily about everything associated with B2B. And often B2B does follow, the trends usually follow in the B2C world, and it follows through in the B2B world. And thirdly, the intentions are entirely different between the two platforms. You know, when you think of Google and you think of social media, there is a difference between the two. The fact is, TikTok and Instagram are not search engines. No one's going onto TikTok to search for car insurance. You know, there might be car insurance brands TikToking to help build a brand, but you're not going to go there to search for it and build a quote. So that's the answer to your question, guys, and that's the end of the webinar. Thanks for coming. Okay, not really. So, still not convinced? Let's have a look at the stats. Internet usage, 67 million internet users in the UK. That's a 4% increase year on year. 98% of the UK uses the internet. 44% of global users visit a brand's website each month. There's been an average of 6 hours and 16 minutes spent using the internet each day, and the most visited website is, surprise, surprise, Google. So that's the internet. That's kind of the most recent statistics on that.
Yeah, and social media though, Jag, you know, we can't ignore it. 58 million social media users in the UK alone. That's a 10%.
Not quite as much as the internet though.
But it's a 10% increase. It's a better increase.
It is.
85% of the UK are active social media users. So obviously we all know those people on our street that probably have 4 accounts that they've forgotten the passwords for, and they're on Facebook like a million times, but that is actually talking about active, so people that are using those. An hour and 53 minutes spent using social each day, which doesn't sound that much compared to internet. I'll let you have that one. But we are talking about social media platforms rather than the overall internet, and it has increased. And 30% actually are using social media in the UK for brand research. So that's a stat we need to definitely take note of.
Yeah. So what we're saying here is that Google is better than social media.
Well, what we're actually saying is, next slide, social media isn't replacing Google. We're not saying that it is ever going to replace Google, because let's be honest, Google is Google. And also, interesting fact as well that I know was the most Googled word is Google. That's just random. But anyway, it's not going away either. So, you know, in the last year alone, we've seen all these things happen. Clubhouse caused complete chaos with its invite only. And then obviously what happens when something new comes out, all the others jump on the bandwagon and create their own versions. So we've seen that happen with obviously Twitter bringing out Spaces, and even Facebook actually looked at one, and LinkedIn have just launched their audio events. The launch of the metaverse now, that is a webinar on its own. Obviously, that's a complete minefield of where that's going in the next 10 years. Instagram, they obviously jumped on the bandwagon when our ever-growing TikTok popularity began. Instagram jumped on that with Reels, and that's now spread across Facebook as well. Personal brand, we saw that explode on LinkedIn, and that became quite a centre stage. And of course, the aforementioned giant TikTok. So what does this take us into our future predictions for social media? So you may remember, or you may have been on our previous webinar back in, I can't remember when it was now, it's so long ago. But we basically predicted the same sort of thing, what we thought was going to be pertinent within 2022. And this is what happened. We said value-adding content would take lead. It definitely has done that. We've seen the rise of PDF documents throughout LinkedIn, upload, things like that. So, you know, that value adding has definitely risen. Video continued to take centre stage. Social media channels could also become shopping channels. We saw that with Instagram and their shopping functionality. The tab, the button moved into the actual main screen as something that is being looked at again. But it's happened. We predicted that. Authenticity will be vital. So, you know, we talk about the cameras and just getting on and making your stories and just not being polished. And that definitely has happened. And personalization, again, talking about that personal brand. So what does that mean going forward for the future? We predict there will be a rise of influencers within the B2B arena. We definitely see this on B2C, but it's happening more so within B2B. The use of user-generated content is what I'm really meaning here. You know, the fashion brands do it really well due to the pandemic. You know, they were forced to have customers taking pictures of themselves in their clothes and using that for their marketing. We're going to see that definitely rise within B2B as well. People using your services and posting about it. Brand inclusivity, that's going to be critical, but employee advocacy will take a huge part of that. So, you know, we're talking particularly about the Gen Z here, where they will change their brand views, but also how they're using social media. You know, the pandemic has shifted that. We will look at a brand and how they are and what they appear as before we decide who we're going to work with. And the Gen Z, they do that even more so, especially when it comes to recruitment as well and joining a business. So it'll be really important that your employee advocacy takes a full kind of centre stage when it comes to that brand. You will also need to be creating conversational and interactive content. So it's that one step beyond the value adding. Yes, add value, but how can we make it conversational? How can we encourage people to actually talk about what we're posting? And that's evidenced by the algorithms. They all love a comment. Like, that is the most rewarding. If somebody comments on your piece of content, then the algorithms will push that out further. So makes sense. And audio, we really predict audio is going to take off. Like it or not, it is staying. So it needs to be incorporated into your marketing plans. But there's 3 big key ones that we're focusing on today, because if I spoke about all of those in greater detail, you'd still be here listening to me tomorrow. So I was told I needed to stay to 3. So this is what I'm going to do. So the first one, and probably the most important one, is a video marketing strategy will be key to your survival. What do we mean by this? So basically, the brain processes images 60,000 times faster than text. We can only process 5 words per second, and our attention span is roughly 8 seconds long. That's changed in the past. It was 12 seconds and it's changed to 8. It's probably going to keep changing as we get lazier and lazier. So yeah, pardon the pun, but it's a no-brainer, really. So trying to be cheesy. So yeah, with video as well, you know, just to give you some statistics on how video is working. Twitter, you're looking at 10 times more engagement on any of your tweets that have video. There's a 20 times greater chance of being shared on LinkedIn, so that content getting shared. 8 billion views per day on Facebook video. I mean, well, that just makes sense in itself, doesn't it? Click-through rate is 8 times higher on your email campaigns, and I know that's cheating a little bit because I'm supposed to be talking about social, but your email, it ties in with your social. I'm sorry, Jack, you're shaking your head at me, but
it's fine. Do what you need to do to win.
And obviously TikTok. It is the best at the moment, and it pains me to say it, because I don't love TikTok as much as I should. But there's 100, like Naya will be shaking her head at that one because Naya loves TikTok, but 118% organic reach. So there's no denying that in terms of its organic reach, it is the best for that. Some statistics there on the side, which really caught my eye when I was looking. 37% of the UK population watch how-to tutorial or educational videos each week. And that's not including your streaming platforms like Netflix and stuff. This is purely just within social media. So I know my husband, he literally watched YouTube and learned how to service our cars. So, you know, that is something that is definitely worthwhile considering within your marketing budgets. Also, a little stat down there, according to Cisco, 82% of online content will consist of videos this year. It's, you know, that's a huge amount. Okay, so TikTok, I couldn't not mention it, obviously. I know I already said it a couple of times, but within B2B, there is at the moment a very confusing point of view whether people want to get on it or they don't want to get on it. They feel like they need to get on it, but they don't know. So I needed to mention it. 70% of TikTok users do say that they have discovered a new product or brand on the platform, but it only ranks 6 in the world's most used social platforms. Above it is the giant Facebook, Instagram, and of course YouTube. So that's something to consider before you jump into it. That said, there are B2B brands doing it right. Over on the side there, there's Shopify, there's Sage, which is an accounting software, which you just wouldn't imagine accounting and finance kind of places being on TikTok, but they are, and they're doing it all right. And then our friends over at Limelight HR, you should check theirs out. They've got really good TikTok strategy and it's working well. In the UK, 22 million people have TikTok, but 35 million have Facebook. My point, don't lose sight of your audience. It all depends on where they are and what they're engaging with. So don't jump straight onto TikTok thinking that it's going to be easy just to nail this organic content and this reach. You need to have a well thought out strategy, and that is going to take time and resource. Second point, social advertising in B2B will increase. Well, of course, that's an easy point to say, but why? You may have heard Google have been talking about it and trying to do it for the last couple of years, but it's actually happening now, and they're setting out to phase out third-party cookies. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why is that a good thing? Because that means we can't track people. Well, what it does mean is that our social platforms are being forced to rethink their advertising capabilities. They're being forced to look at it differently and see how they can adapt so that they obviously still get the money in and that you still want to advertise. Facebook are doing this. They've literally been looking at doing basic advertising, which means that they will chuck out the net really far and wide, which, yes, is not tailored, but it's cheaper and it'll allow you to kind of gather an audience that maybe you might not have reached before with your targeting ads. So one thing to point. Also, consumers appear to be more receptive to ads. So we talk a lot about, whenever I talk with anyone about advertising on social media, we talk about making it authentic, making it look natural and organic. So gone are the days where we put free on it and make it look like a real promo. We're actually more engaging in using natural content, particularly those that we've received from user generated. So, customers actually posting testimonials and actually putting an ad behind that, things like that. So so making it more receptive, and they don't even realize that it's an ad. And I mean, I'm not going to read through those stats, you can see them yourself, but the potential reach in the UK alone is huge on all of the platforms, so it's not something to dismiss. And finally, social experience will accelerate. So what do we mean by this? So we see it already in the B2C arena. Social media platforms are used for other things than just going on and finding news or researching a product. They are used to go on and obviously mourn and things like that as well. So why are we saying this? Community management. So within your teams, your social media teams are going to need to manage your community. Facebook's doing it with the groups. Business pages can now have groups. LinkedIn have groups. So there's a lot on there for your marketing managers to be managing and looking after, because we are human beings, and it is now known that people expect a response on social media within 3 hours. So when they use that messenger button to find out where their product is, where their service is, why this hasn't happened the way it has, and we are human beings, so even in B2B, we will do that. We also need to be aware that any of our marketing managers will also be crisis managing. We had that happen a couple of weeks ago with one of our B2B businesses, where a service hadn't been delivered on time, and he was chasing it up through one of our social channels on the messenger, and Fran dealt with that really well and managed to turn that negative into a positive, and the customer went away really happy. So there's a perfect example there. Social is making it easier for us to mourn. I mean, I love a good mourn on Twitter. Right? I literally will go and mourn about anything on there. So I think everybody's doing that, and we need to be aware of it. And of course, the B2B customer journey is ever more complex than the B2C. It is not a linear journey. We know that within B2B, things take a lot longer than they do within B2C. So what does that conclude? That you need to be aware that if your brand is pretty big and you have many different platforms, then you might want to consider employing a community manager to work alongside your social media team.
Okay, some good arguments there, Danny. So let's talk about the future predictions for websites and SEO in the B2B arena. As Danny said, with the social media side of things, we could talk about this all day, every day. There's all kinds of things going on, so we've had to really narrow it down. So just a bit of an overview of our predictions for 2023 based on what we're seeing. So businesses will gather more data to support their sales funnel. So, you go on websites, you're seeing forms on there to collect data for things like lead magnets and all that kind of stuff. We're going to see a lot more of that. You might come across blogs and headlines saying, lead magnets are dead or SEO is dead. I think that's, it all comes down to, I don't agree with that, because it all depends on the audience that you're dealing with and what kind of content and what the actual sales journey is and what the sales funnel looks like. CRM integrations will continue to gain prominence. It's all about data. So, we're going to see a lot more integration with websites in the B2B arena with CRMs, which again, relating back to the first point, is going to connect in with the sales funnels and be able to provide value-adding content. Third-party integrations will continue to grow. For example, Calendly, you're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff, so people can interact and it can connect with their email and connect with their calendar, and they can actually do stuff with it. That's actually taking them to make that next call to action. Online reviews will support the truth of your brand. Now, online reviews, that links in with social media as well. People talking about your brand and leaving reviews on the likes of Facebook and all these kinds of places, as well as Google. I'm going to talk about that a bit more shortly. And then Google Analytics 4 will give us even more user intelligence. And I'm going to talk about that just a little bit, a bit later on. But the ones you really need to take note of, I had to really think about, what is it that we're seeing, and what is it that we really believe is the thing that's going to come really kind of move forward in 2023. So number one, website user experience, otherwise known as UX, will continue to gain prominence. When a website is easy to use, we don't notice it. On the flip side, if it's terrible, you're going to notice it. If you can't find what you're looking for, or if it's not laid out right, or if there's a massive wall of text, or if the colors are all over the place and the layout is all over the place, we don't notice something when it's easy to use. Now, technology is making website design so much easier these days. There's site builders like Squarespace and Wix that allow simple but effective websites to be created on a budget. Now, I'm not a big fan of these, but if you're just starting out in business and you need to get just a basic web presence on there, you're not going to immediately rank on page one for whatever it is you offer, through just by putting one of these sites together. But the templates that these provide, I've watched them, they get better and better. And if you've got a little bit of an idea of kind of what you want to put where, the user experience, the layout, and where the call to action buttons are, and how it kind of guides you to the next stage in that user journey on the website, it's just getting so much better. It's becoming more accessible to the layman. So from a design point of view, it's just going to get leaner and leaner, and all these crazy flashy things are going to become lesser and lesser, is what I believe. It's all about just that clean, effective approach to just getting the message across, which goes on to our next point. We continue to master human-centered design skills, such as empathy and storytelling. What the hell does that even mean? Your website's written content is fundamental to how your audience perceive you and remember you. It's not just about a pretty design. When people talk about web design, people think, all right, yeah, it needs to look good, but it's the message. That's the thing that's going to speak to you and speak to your pain points and speak to the values that you have. And if you connect with those, that's the thing that's going to really make you move forward. Design is obviously a really important thing. The written content and the design and the layout go hand in hand, but I'm really focusing on on the written content side of things, which takes me on to my second point. Brand authenticity and messaging on your website will become even more central. Gone are the days when you could just get away with saying whatever the hell you want on your website. We're innovative, we're high quality, we're the best in the world, because well right, access to social proof allows us to research a brand. If your website's brand message isn't authentic, it'll quickly come out in the wash. If you're saying something on your website and people are leaving reviews and people are talking about you on social media that conflicts with that in a big way, and the displacement is quite big, it's going to become apparent. There needs to be an alignment with what's happening. You can't control what people are going to say. You just have to, be authentic, and that will come through in what people say about you in the social media world. So that's a little nod to social for you there, Danny. As you're welcome. As Danny mentioned, we have an attention span of 8 seconds. So basically, your website, the brand has to get to the point and it has to cut through the noise, or you're going to lose people's attention. So it has to really speak to the kind of inner core values and speak to that pain point that that people are after. From a slightly different angle, you know, people think so. Recruitment continues to be a challenge. It has been for the last year or two. Across across so many sectors. Your brand isn't only there for customers, it's also there to attract the best talent. So that authenticity and the key messaging within your website is something that's there to attract the right kind of people that align with your values. And you know, that's how you get there, that's how you build a business. If you've got all your people internally that are aligned with your values, it just becomes a natural thing. It isn't forced for everyone to kind of speak in the same way and kind of share the same values and behave in the same way. Another reason, to cut through the noise, you need to position yourself as an authority. High quality website content will build trust, generate engagement, and gain loyal followers. So again, you know, if you're going onto a website and you're seeing, yeah, all right, this really spoke to me, people are going to remember that. We did some research for a webinar we did last year, and we asked the question, how often do you go to a B2B website before you decide to make an inquiry? And roughly about 60% of the people said they'll visit the website 2 or 3 times. So again, being memorable and getting that message across is fundamental in what needs to happen. And I see that happening a lot more in 2023. And high quality content will increase your search engine ranking. So strategic keyword usage will gain traffic from a more qualified audience that are likely to convert quicker. So, you know, there's SEO is a huge thing, and you know, you need to make sure you've got the right keywords in there. If they're finding you for the right thing, it's going to reduce the amount of time you're having to spend on converting that client, because, well, they're coming in and they're getting the answer they want. So in the sales funnel, they're just so much closer to actually trusting you and, you know, wanting to chat to you, and they're bought in so much quicker. Now that last point takes me on to the next point. Website content will become even more people focused. It's all about the people. Everything I'm talking about here is the written content and the focus around people. We talk about B2C and B2B, but really it's H to H, human to human. People talk to people. In the B2C world, it happens in a great way. In the B2B world, I think it still is something that needs to happen a lot more, and I see it happening a lot more in 2023. Well, why is that going to happen? Google have recently released a helpful content update. Now, I'm not going to go into every last bit of detail, but the following types of websites will be rewarded. Sites that don't stray too far from its main topic, so you're not trying to be all things to all people. You're cutting deep in your area of expertise. Sites that demonstrate first-hand experience, so if you're showing solid case studies that relate to your expertise. And sites that provide sufficient answers to searchers' questions, for example, FAQs. So if people are searching for something that's looking to have a question answered, and you know, that's written in a human way, that's the kind of thing that it's looking for. It's becoming, well, in short, if you look on the side, Google is getting much better at recognizing when you're trying to play the system. If you think back to 10, 15 years ago, you know, standard SEO practice was just to ram your website with horrible keywords. That meant sentences didn't really make a lot of sense, but the website was ranking well. But you know, was it converting stuff? It probably was, but it's just painful to look at these sites from back then compared to the way that it's become more human now. In a nutshell, just be human. That's where we're going to be going. You know, the AI and, you know, the technology is becoming so much more intelligent. It's becoming more human. Which takes me on to point number 4. So Danny only had 3. I managed to squeeze a 4th one in, sneak a 4th one in there. Position 1 on Google will remain important, but your brand will dictate your website inquiry rate. So what does that mean? You know, people making inquiries with us, and they're always saying, you know, we want to be on page 1 of Google. And I say, why? Okay. Picture this scenario. You visit Google to search for, let's say, an accountant. You don't recognize a company in position 1, but you do recognize a company in position 2. Where are you most likely to click first? You don't have to answer. Every single person I've had this conversation with, the answer is, actually, that's a good point. I'd probably click on position 2 first, but then, you know, naturally you're going to click around a little bit and have a look at a few others. You then might have a look at position 1. So it's all about the strength of the brand. On average in a day, you see between 3. Sorry?
I said that's technically where social will help as well. I'm just
Well,
jumping in
yeah,
on your point.
yeah. You're jumping in and trying to squeeze social into there. On average in a day, you see between 3,000 and 25,000 marketing messages a day. If you think of the room that you're sat in, there'll be branding on your laptop, there'll be branding on your watch. If you open your phone, you've got all these apps shouting at you. You have to have touched base with the brand 7 times, have a need or a want for it, and then you're most likely to take action. So yes, being in position 1 on Google is important, but you need to be present in a number of places that are relevant to your target audience. Also, there's a lot of noise on Google. If you think of the paid ads, the map pack, your brand will help you cut through this noise. You need to be present in a number of places to, well, just demonstrate the point that I made about, position 1 or position 2. And your brand, well, as I've just said before, it needs to be present across as many audience relevant channels as possible. It's all about brand trust, guys. That will dictate the strength of your inquiries and conversion rates. We're talking about marketing and inquiries here, but really the ultimate goal here is conversion. And what we want to be able to do is narrow down the amount of time that is spent on the conversion side of things, and it's the messaging that's going to come across. And we're seeing a lot more of that, a lot more focus being placed and attention being placed on brand voice and the actual message that's getting across and speaking to the target audience and understanding the target audience. So in summary, Danny, I think you put a pretty good point across in your 3 points that you had for social media.
Yeah, to be fair, Jag, I have to give you some credit. You've done all
4
right.
points.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
The question is, yeah. So the question is, who wins? Is it social media or is it, your website? The reality of it is, it's as we've kind of hinted towards for everything that we've said so far, is there's a number of things. I'm going to talk about a model that we've created. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's our take on how marketing works. I'm just going to talk you through the whole process from the beginning. So the 7 stages to achieve return on investment. Stage 1 is discovery, understanding where you've been, where you are now, where it is you want to go, who your competition are, who your audience are. Once you've done that, you move on to stage 2, which is the strategy, and that captures all activity that needs to take place. And the outcome from the strategy is basically you need to do this in January, you need to do that in February, you need to do that in March, and so on and so on. And that's based on all the goals and objectives that you set at the discovery stage. Stage 3 is at the heart of the model, which is your brand and your content, your message. And your brand is so much more than just your logo. It's everything I've just been talking about. It's your tone of voice, it's your values, it's the key messages that you want to get across. That then feeds into stage 4, which is your website, which is like the sun in your solar marketing system. And that's central to all the activity. That's the hub that most people will go to before they'll make an inquiry in the B2B world. And then stage 5 is what we call the planet. So it's all the different channels. I mean, this is a generic model, so there are other channels. But if you think of, search marketing, social media, email, PR, and general advertising, they're all the traffic channels that drive traffic to the website. And content is the orange ring around each one of these, because as in the center of the heart of the model, it's the message and the content that is fundamental. You could be posting on social media all day, every day, and saying nothing that resonates with your target audience. So again, understanding your target audience and getting that message across is really at the heart of the model. And as I mentioned, you need to be, as we talked about building your brand, you see 3 to 25,000 market messages a day. You need to be seen in, places where your audience are. Stage 6 is review and measure. So have a look at what it is that's actually working well. Keep doing that. Whatever's not working, you need to review and measure and test it, and that leads to your return on investment. So really what we're saying here, guys, is it's about, think of it like a graphic equalizer. You need to have a good level balance of a number of activities going on across a series of platforms. And the reality is we don't have endless budgets. There needs to be, it isn't just one channel that is going to become that one massive thing that's going to really build your brand.
They all complement each other at the end of the day. As much as it pains to admit it, social works with PR, PR works with social, email works with search, website is, yeah.
Website is the best, of course, but all the rest are they all
We're never going to agree. They work together, Doug.
They do work together. They absolutely do work together. I mean, going back to it, I describe it as a symbiotic relationship. All of these things work in harmony with each other, and they all support each other. And if there's one element missing from it, you're missing a trick. So the question is, how do you decide where to invest your budgets? Now, this is a tricky one because every business, like every person, every business is a little bit different. So we're going to give you a bit of an outline of the things to look out for.
The most important thing, obviously, is considering your audience. If you don't know who they are or what they like, why they like it, where they are, as in what platforms or what source, what channel, when they're there, and how they like to act, then how do you even know where to start? So if you've not sat down and considered all of this, then I highly recommend you put some time and investment into doing this. We do this with our clients before we start anything, and we've included an example of one of our clients who kindly allowed us to use it. It's not moved along on my thing. Did you go to sleep then, Jag? Did you go to sleep?
I had a little nap then.
Did you?
I'm back.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. So this is an example of an audience persona. We have done a webinar before when we've gone into detail about this. I'm going to give you those information a little bit later on. But just a quick overview of what this is. So the team and I, we always do, there's a lot of research that goes into this. Naya will back me up on that. We spend a lot of time looking into who this individual is, to the point that when we work with a business, that person, so Nina, is embedded in Mitchell's. She is actually referenced whenever they look at any recruitment, whatever channel they are using for that recruitment, whether it be attending a fair, going out in public, website messaging, putting out a social media campaign. Nina is at the focus of everything they do. So basically, this person, we give them a background, so we really look into what their background is, how they've got to where they are, what's happened, what their ambitions are for the future. The identifiers, so these are just the general personality traits, their goals, and these don't just have to be business because everybody's human. We all have goals, whether it be to pay our debt off or to go traveling or whatever. Those goals can align with what you're trying to achieve within business as well, of course. We also then look at their primary challenges. So what's stopping them from achieving those goals? What are those pain points, those frustrations that they regularly feel on a day-to-day basis? We look into the sources of information. Where do they go to get their information? And that really drills it down. It's not just about what platform they're actually using, but also it might be, are they in groups? Are they in community groups on LinkedIn? Which groups might they be in? And we do go that granular sometimes, depending on what the goal is and the objective. We look at things like topics. So, if we were going to write blogs, what kind of topics would they be interested in reading about? Influences. So we mentioned earlier about B2B and influencers, the rise of them. So knowing who your audience are actually following on social media or reading books that have been written by, it doesn't just have to be in a digital arena, but knowing who these people are will help you then think about how you might target them in a different way. On the right hand side, we then talk about, we give them some sayings. So we actually get inside their heads and we think about what they might be saying. And this helps people to really understand what is going on in Nina's life. Then there's the demographics, which just give them a bit more of a personality, but also obviously help in terms of the age and things like that. But then we summarize all of this at the bottom. What does it tell us, and how can the business that we're working with, what could they do to help this person? We also include a bit of the messaging and how we might say, you need to attack this person with messaging around XYZ. So it's a really, really important and extremely useful tool. And These don't last forever. We do recommend you revisiting them because, you know, things happen. We've just had a massive pandemic. You know, and we've revisited ours because people's habits have naturally changed, which we've seen with the rise of social media. So yeah, we just wanted to share that with you because that is the ultimate first thing that you should be doing, and spending a bit of budget and time on getting this right.
Okay, thank you, Danny. So the other thing that you need to do is look at where your current inquiries are coming from. Is this where the majority of your audience are? So obviously from the audience persona information that Danny just talked about, you'll have an idea of kind of where they are. If so, what can you do to gain more? If not, you need to understand where they are. So the starting point, often when we speak to clients, we ask the question, where your inquiry is coming from. That information should be at hand or available within 10, 15 minutes, just like that. So you need to start logging where your inquiries are actually coming from. Now, word of mouth marketing is by far the most powerful form of marketing. This comes down to the brand strength, and it can be harnessed through social proof. So the number of businesses we work with that have been going for 20, 30 years, and they're amazing at, you know, building, manufacturing widgets or doing this thing that they do, but they've not really done any proper marketing. We always say, you know, we're there to harness. A good marketing agency is there to harness that positive brand there. You know, in one scenario, what you don't want is to be all over the place in the digital world and in the marketing world saying, you know, this brand is brilliant, this brand is brilliant, but the reality is the service is poor. And you know, people talking negatively about it, it's going to create a real displacement. So obviously it comes down to, you know, the operation side of the business. You can't beat that. And something like that, when someone's doing something good, that's when you know, people are going to be happy. And when your client is happy or your customer is happy, that's when you need to be pinning, well, not pinning them down, but asking at that point, if you're happy, please leave us a Google review. Please, you know, leave us, say something nice about us on Facebook or whatever platform it is, and build the reviews and build your reviews. It's a very difficult thing to do because, you know, people are only going to generally leave reviews if they're exceptionally unhappy or exceptionally happy. Everything in between, you know, we're all too busy to be leaving reviews. If you think of Amazon, you purchase something on Amazon, they're always saying, oh, you just bought this pen set, can you tell us how great it is? And they're constantly emailing you, because obviously that social proof is the thing that really helps build a brand. Other things that you need to consider, the big question is, you know, let's talk about resource. Time is the most valuable resource we all have. We only have 24 hours in the day. Every minute that passes, once it's gone, it's gone. People resource, do you have that in-house? And then knowledge, do you have that in-house? You need to think about how much of these elements that you actually have and what kind of financial budgets you actually have available. And that will dictate, you know, there are elements, you know, we believe firmly in empowerment, and that's kind of what we're doing here. We're trying to give information on the kind of things that you can consider for what it is that you need to be doing for 2023. And then off the back of that, obviously you need to consider where you bring the specialists in for the things that you may not have the resource or knowledge for. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight on the things that you actually need to, you know, how to actually consider your budgets. And it's the kind of thing, you know, if you want to contact us afterwards, we're more than happy to have a bit of a chat with you and give a few more pointers, because every business is a little bit different. So it's difficult to really pin down absolutely every last part of exactly what needs to happen, because there's so many different variants. So anyway, we're now going to talk about tools that we'd recommend for improving your digital marketing strategy. But before we do that, we'd like to ask you if you could just take a few seconds to fill out a quick survey. So we're just going to put a poll out there for you. Literally, it'll just take a few moments.
Off now. Don't you leave yet.
Over to you, Danny.
I'm trying, I'm doing it, I think. Is it there?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yep.
So overall, how would you rate the event? Be honest, guys. You don't have to lie. You don't have to worry about it. It's anonymous. You don't have to worry about hurting our feelings. If you guys could just, you know, give us your honest opinion and just click on submit.
We've got 85% so far. People voted. Yes, I can see.
But it's anonymous.
Yeah, I can't see who's done it.
Okay, that's that one. Thank you, guys. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yep.
So there's just 2 more questions, guys, same type. How likely would you be to recommend a friend or colleague to a future webinar put on by Xpand?
I think it's worth noting as well, we can see that there are some questions in the chat, and we do have a questions section, so we will answer them. I can see some that are actually really interesting, so looking forward to answering them. All right, I'm going to close this one down now.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. And then final one.
Nice, easy, yes, no.
Nice and simple.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, happy days. Shall we move on?
Cool beans.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing that. Right, tools. Let's talk about tools. That could be something that you could use to support the stuff we're talking about. Danny.
So somebody did actually ask. Sorry, I was doing the technical stuff. I can't do 2 things at once, apparently. So somebody asked in the chat where we get our statistics and our data from. One of the most useful tools that we find for the statistics is a website called Data Reportal. They actually do regular reports, and they narrow them right down to even looking at each platform for social media. They even narrow down to different countries, so it's really worthwhile having a look at them. We do get a lot of our stats from there. There are others as well, and the sources are laid out amongst our slides, but yeah, definitely take a look at them. Jag, you can do yours next. You take it in turn.
Okay. Google Analytics 4. So this is something that's going to be kicking in. It's going to be switched over in July 2023. So it's a much more updated version. It gives a lot more intel. I'm not going to go into any kind of detail of what it is, but the reality is if you haven't switched to it by July 23, you need to be doing it very quickly, because it only gives, well, if you switch it now, it'll give you what the next 8 months worth of data, it'll give you backdated data. So if there's anything I can recommend, get that switched over on your website, because it'll allow you to see, you know, a lot more data, the new type of data moving forward.
We have a really cool blog on that actually that Simon wrote, don't we?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do.
Yeah, it does look kind of scary, but when you get used to it, it's actually really cool. Publer is a scheduling tool that we use. It's a lot cheaper than some of the big boys, but it's also really good. Like there's some really good things that it's able to do that others are not. Rival IQ is a comparison tool that we use. You can do free 2-week competitor analysis against somebody on each of the social media channels. So that's quite cool when you're doing your competitor research.
Okay.
Yeah, you, Jack.
And then finally, a few of the useful tools. You can call them tools. There are other Xpand webinars. So I've seen the questions being asked. Some people said they've missed slides. What we're going to be doing is we're going to get the recording of this, and we're going to take the slides and we're going to put them in a blog on our website. So that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be sending out an email as well, just to let you know when that happens. So you will be able to watch the recording back and see the slides, and we're going to write it out as well. So these are other webinars that we did over the last couple of years. So Danny talked about audience personas. So one of the webinars that Danny did was understanding your customers in depth to achieve post-lockdown growth. So that gives a lot more information on audience personas, how to create a connection between your LinkedIn audience and your website. That's a really interesting one in terms of your personal brand and how it connects in the business brand, and we had some really good stats to kind of work with that. LinkedIn fear factors and how to overcome them. Again, that's a really good one. You know, that was done about 2 years ago, so obviously LinkedIn has moved on since then. Sorry?
Not biased at all. It's a really good.
Biased at all. Oh yeah. Basically, don't listen to Danny. The one you want to listen to is mine. 5 ways to convert your website visitors into customers. You can see that since working with Danny, I've gone a lot grayer. I've got a black beard there, and now I'm completely grey. So,
wow.
But really, the LinkedIn fear factors and how to overcome them. It's a really good one, and we still kind of send it to people. There might be some elements, and the one that and the other LinkedIn one that might be ever so slightly out of date, but it's a good starting point if it's something that you're kind of starter or intermediate at. And then finally, our first webinar, 7 Steps to Becoming a LinkedIn All-Star. We did this during lockdown. And again, there might be some elements that are slightly out of date, but it's there on our blog page under the webinar category. There's recordings, there's slides, so please, it's free. Have a watch of them. Hopefully it'll give you some useful information from there. So finally, guys, you should now know how your audience are using social media and Google to find your business. Our future predictions for social media in B2B, our predictions for websites and SEO in B2B, how to decide where to invest your budgets, and hopefully a few useful tools. So questions, well, obviously there are questions, so we'll jump to that. But before we do that, I'm just going to say, obviously, thanks for coming along, guys. Let's connect. This is Danny and mine and Danny's QR codes for LinkedIn. Please do connect with us and obviously have a look at our socials as well. So let's have a look at the questions. What have we got? Shall I start, Danny?
Yes, David Smith, I do interrupt him a lot.
Yes, she does.
Or he just keeps going and going.
Thanks for recognising that, David. That's the reason I'm standing here. Right.
Do they have a podcast? That's interesting.
That's interesting. Well, watch this space. Okay, so
yeah, I'll interrupt Jag a lot more on that one too. There's loads of questions. You don't even know how to pick which ones to answer.
Yeah, I saw one. Hang on a second. Where do we start? Right. So, Andrew, you asked the question: how good are SaaS-built websites versus getting your own one custom built? So, historically, I was never a huge fan of kind of these, like I say, Squarespace or Wix. When people are just starting out at that stage, I'm saying, you know what, if you don't have the budget to have it done right, start off with something like that, because the reality is you're not going to get found on Google straight away. You just need that starting brand presence. I would say have one custom built. And when I'm saying custom built, it doesn't have to be built from scratch. There's great platforms out there, Shopify, WordPress. There are some purists that say WordPress, but there's brands like Disney and Marks and Spencer's and MTV. They all use WordPress, and the BBC for various websites. So if it's good enough for them, it really does have its use. So, if you're in a position to attribute budget to it, then I would recommend always going for something custom built. But there's 5 key skill sets you need to consider when having a website built. There's the UX designer, there's the developer, there's the content writer, which actually comes first out of that. There's the SEO expert, and then there's the marketer that ties all of that together and shows how it works in the bigger picture as it is in Solar 7. So if you're going to be working with somebody on website, you just need to make sure that they've got experience, or there are people involved that have got experience in all those areas. So that's a question from me. Danny, do you want to find?
So Rosie has asked, would you say persona creation could be done internally by sales and marketing teams brainstorming, or does it really need external help to do this? Rosie, no, I think you can do it in-house, and I think sales and marketing teams brainstorming is an absolute ideal situation. 100%. If you can get them involved, because there's this. We all know about this grey area of sales and marketing and not always wanting to work together and against each other. So, doing that, brilliant. Yes, 100% get them involved. No one knows your business better than you guys know it, and the sales team are talking to your audience all the time. So getting them involved is 100% definitely something we'd recommend. So yeah.
Okay, great. Paul Thompson, you asked a question. To what extent does linking to other trusted web sources from website content help SEO? Do search engines reward attribution to trusted web sources with increased ranking? So the short answer on that is actually no, it's the other way around. So there's a general kind of measurement called domain authority. So every website has a domain authority. So if you can basically get links from other websites that have a high domain authority, and you can get them to link back to your website, Google will see that as, basically that will pass Google juice back to yours. Google will see it as, oh wow, okay, your website, that's this really high domain authority website there, and they're linking to this website that doesn't have a high domain authority. That must actually be, there must be a reason they've done that. So it'll give you a little bit more domain authority and improve your rankings on that front. Sadly, it doesn't work the other way around. It's basically the high domain authority to the low domain authority. How do you get links back from other websites? Well, that comes down to content creation, digital PR, creating content that another website is actually going to want to post that's value adding for their audience. And even then, you have to rely on them to actually post a link back to your website. There's all kinds of elements of it, but hopefully that answers the question on that front. Danny?
To do one more, and then
let's go with one.
I think obviously the point of it, there is quite a lot on here. So like Jag said before, if we haven't answered your questions, we're really sorry, but I'm just conscious of the time. So please do drop us a direct message on LinkedIn or drop us an email and we'll continue the conversation. We could jump on a call one-to-one. So because there is quite a lot in here, and it's hard to decide which ones to do. But I have noticed the one from John P. If Google disables third-party cookies, how do you get your data about your audience? Social media may be helpful, but possibly not as efficient. And in brackets, he's not taking sides between us, which is a very, very sensible idea, sitting on the fence. It actually is what we want you to do because we want them to work together. So we've achieved that. But yeah, basically, social media does work quite well, particularly LinkedIn, using the search functionality. We always start there before we don't even use the third-party stuff, the cookies or anything like that. We go straight into that search functionality on LinkedIn, search for the job title and just do a bit of research and a bit of digging. And there are other tools that you can incorporate into your LinkedIn, so you can see things like putting the disc analysis on and stuff like that. I cannot remember what it's called off the top of my head, and that's really bad. But I will ensure that it's passed out with the blog and things. I will include that in there. But basically, we use that. We also look at our analytics on Google. So we look at things like what time people are visiting the website, so when they might be most active, what kind of pages like they're reading on our website, you know, so we can actually look at the most visited pages, could be case studies, things like that. And we also just use Google. We just literally will Google stuff and, you know, ask the questions and, you know, look at networking in whatever industry, or look at job descriptions. You know, what is that person, you know, what are the particular skill sets or the particular traits that people are advertising for that job role. That really helps as well. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight, but definitely watch that other webinar because we go into a lot of detail in that one. So yeah.
Great. And Stuart, sorry, Danny, I'm interrupting you now. Stuart, great. We've already got one subscriber for our podcast, so that's great. And yes, I don't know when our next networking event is, but it would be great because we're
working on it.
Yeah, watch this space for the podcast. And somebody asked if I'm going to sing a Beatles song at the end. The answer is no, because Danny spoke so much, but we're running out of time.
Jag, I promised that you would do that if they were still here. Are they still here at the end?
No, everybody's gone. It's 10:59. Sorry, guys, it's time to go. Right. Thank you, folks, so much for coming along. Thank you for coming along. I really hope you gained some value from this. And it's been a real pleasure putting this together. So thank you, guys.
It's been great to be included in Leeds Digital Festival. We hope you're going out to lots of the others. Myself and the team, we went to one the other day and it was awesome. So, you know, yeah, thank you for letting us be part of it, I guess.